You've just run your web app scanner. Do you know what the output means? Stick around to find out.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of CySa Plus, and we are talking web app scanners and analyzing that output. Dan, help us out here. I'm looking at this output. I'm not sure what it means, but I hope you can help me out.
Yeah, these scanners have a lot of information that they give out, right? And that's important information if you're engaging in a vulnerability assessment of some sort, right? Specifically web applications, because web apps are really a main inroad into your organization. They're meant to be seen by the outside world, but they can be rife with flaws and bugs and things of that nature. So we need to be able to engage with them in some way, shape, or form. So along comes the advent of the web application scanner to try to find some of that low-hanging fruit. Hey, you might want to look here, you might want to look there, but if we don't know what our scanner is telling us, we're going to have a hard time effectively doing that. So Wes, your question is extremely pertinent to the conversation. The fact that, all right, I've run a scan. What am I looking at and how do I use that information? So the first place we're going to start is, and we're going to go through 4 scanners that they call out for the CySa Plus objectives. First one is going to be OWASP's ZAP or Z application proxy. I don't name these things. I just call them as I see them, right? So there it is, the Z application proxy. But the good news is free scanner. Go download it, install it, enjoy, right? My version of Kali Linux did not come with it pre-installed. It used to, but I think I'm on 2019.4, and I would assume for 2021, it would not have it as well. So I had to install it. Apt-get update, apt-get install, and you should be on the money. So once I did that, I was able to run the scanner, which I have done. Right here, let's take a look, and you'll have to forgive. Again, I did not write the thing. I did not make it to where the font size was minuscule and people with, 420 vision or whatever the case is. So I'll zoom in and out as necessary for us to understand what is going on here. We have some major boxes here. We've got this side of the fence over here. We've got this side of the fence over here, and we've got this other side of the fence. So what's going on over here is basically like the sites that we have connected to. So if I need to get that information, let's kind of zoom in over here. You'll notice that I had one site that I've already scanned, and all that information is going to stay over here. So kind of my scoped out area. And underneath that, any of the interesting information that it has resulted in. Sites, so subsites from there, so pages, all that other good stuff. I see that I found a robots.txt and a sitemap.xml, and I can continue to drill down with all the stuff I see. There's some Drupal information. Hopefully at this point, you're already starting to get like, oh, well, I'm doing a lot of really good enumeration, and the scanner did that for me. I didn't do anything but go over here. This is where you start out with in ZAP. This is the main area to say, where do I want to scan? What am I looking for? And you'll say, it does say like, there you go. If, it did before anyway. It typically tells you, if you're not familiar with these options, you'll see some options. I'm already past that screen, but pick one of these option bullets, should help you out. I just went with an automated scan. It said, which URL do you want to attack? You just pop your URL right here. Give it some, I use the traditional spider. The spider is the part of the scanner that goes through each and finds all those pages and then reports back, okay? If you want to use an Ajax spider, you can, but then I just hit the attack button. Once that was done, once I hit attack, it actually starts to run a vulnerability scan. Now, with that being said, depending on the size of the sites and the pages that it finds through the spidering, attacking it could take a while. So vulnerability assessment could take a while. This one was because I didn't have to go very deeply into the application, so it didn't take very long. So we're not going to have an overwhelming amount of information for us to have to sift through. Now, once that's done, once it sees what it found and it puts it over there on that left-hand side, then we can drop down into this lower area and start to look at these tabs right here. So history this is Z attack proxy. Proxy in that name should be, Wes, I'm sure you're familiar and worked with proxies before.
Oh, yeah.
No different than anything. So a proxy. How would you define a proxy?
You know, I think of a web proxy. I mean, that's going to be kind of almost a mirror image of your web server. The difference being that you can do a little bit more control on what people can or can't get access to. Can they get farther than the proxy? Where does that take them? But it really, to me, is like a replica of the web server with a little bit more control on what people can do.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly what this is doing. Since I've spun it up, I can point machines to it and then filter or proxy the traffic through the device itself, even my own. And that's basically how I've got it set up, is I'm proxying all my own web traffic through the OWASP Zap application, right? So what ends up happening is I get a history of all the stuff that I've done. So I've actually visited this URL, and if I click on one of those historical links, I can go and look at what that request looks like and see all that underlying information that happens when I go from one site to the other or one page to the other within a site. That'll all be there. What the response was from the server, right? I'm seeing the HTML documentation down here, and you're seeing like, do not use this system in a production environment. That's because it is purposefully built full of holes. So yeah, that's a good flag to put there. But I see that it returned a 200 response. I see all that information that I normally wouldn't see from just browsing the web. I would have to go through other methods, this being one of them. All right, so there's my history. Let's go back to these tabs really quickly. Let's jump over to the alerts. This is where the scanner will kick out. Here are some problems I think that we may have, you might want to look a little deeper into, right? So it's got like an X-frame header is not set, and it even gives you some description right here. X-frame option header is included, is not included in the HTTP response to protect against clickjacking attacks. Okay, so maybe that's something we need to look into. Maybe our application is causing vulnerabilities for our users through clickjacking type attacks because we don't have this X-frame options header set. Maybe we want to go back and do that. Something that it's lending our mind to. No other info. It even offers a solution, which I think is awesome. OWASP is a great organization, so they do stuff like that. And it just tells you what to go through and do. I'm not going to read it out for you. Even gives you a reference for that information. A couple of other things. Anti-CSRF tokens are gone. There's no anti-CSRF. X content type option header missing. Maybe that could lead to an issue. And again, it'll give you that information over here on the right-hand side. Some scanners give you more information. Some scanners give you less. Just depends on what you're running. This is a great option. Because it's free. Also, super fast, works really well. And if you don't have a lot of this in your budget for security, this could be a really good option for you depending on the size of your shop and your skill level. It can do a lot of heavy lifting. So I highly recommend playing around with it, getting familiar with it. There's a lot of options available and stuff that you can do with it. It's a great tool.
All right. Now, Dan, I'm familiar with the OWASP site for sure. I didn't know what Zap was until literally this episode. And one that I have heard a lot about, don't really work with it too much, is Burp Suite. Can you tell us a little bit about Burp Suite? What should I expect to see if I'm going to run one of these scans and now I'm looking at the output?
Yeah, so Burp Suite is probably the gold standard when it comes to web application interaction. It is a proxy as well, just like Zap. A lot of the things that you do in Zap, you will see in Burp. In my opinion, it is much easier to work with. It has a lot more functionality expansion due to the fact that it has like what they call the kind of like an app store that's built into it. I could stop talking about it. We could just bring it up and show it to you. That's probably a whole lot easier. Let me close this out. Yeah, close my session. And then there's my, that's where I was browsing the web to do this stuff. And let's get Burp. I just got an icon for it up here, but you can start it any way you like. There's Burp Suite. Fire it off. Now, I believe this is coming pre-installed with the latest versions of Kali Linux. So whatever you go with should be fine. This is just complaining about my version of Java. Whatever. My runtime environment's a little behind the times. Who cares? It's just a pen testing distro. Here is talking about sessions. You get the same kind of activity when it comes to Zap, where if I started a scan, do I want to then save all that information when I close out? Because this might take me a series of days to actually complete. So if you want to create a project for this client with all that information so that you could use that later, maybe in reports or something, you can save that. But I'm just going to go with a temporary project so we're not saving that stuff. Again, same kind of idea back at Burp. Oh, I'm sorry, Zap. All right. If you have any kind of configuration files, you can load that here. But I'm just going to start Burp because we're going to go with a plain Jane. Now, I am using the community edition of Burp Suite. This is an important distinction for our demonstration here. The community edition of Burp Suite does not have the vulnerability scanning option enabled. You have to have the professional version of this, which costs a little bit of money. I think at this point in time is right around $400. You might go, whoo, that's some money. Let me tell you what, that is some of the cheapest bang for your buck you're going to get, even if you were just someone that's starting your own company. Will Zap work for you? Yeah, it's going to do a lot for you. But $400 dropped on Burp Suites is a small price to pay for some really good functionality.
You know, I would think of what the cost is for a single violation in GDPR, and I would say that it's probably worth the money.
Yeah, could be helpful.
Yeah, most definitely.
So let's go into the interface here. Let's take a look. I just wanted to do this, not zoomy zoom. I'm going crazy. And again, we got some tabs here at the top. I didn't write the thing. They make these things small as they can be, so I'll try to zoom in as much as possible so we can see everything. Really, I usually start with target. Here's where you're going to start scoping things out. You notice it has a scope area. But the proxy is probably going to be your number 2 tab, or you'll probably spend more time in the proxy tab, but you'll definitely want to visit that target tab to get that scope. Otherwise, you're going to be inundated with a lot of information, and that might not be what you want to do. But in there, what we would be looking for normally here is does it have it? Where's it at? I don't even see it. The intruder, repeater, sequencer, decoder, comparer. Yeah, I'm not even seeing it in there. But if you go into, is it user options? No. Project, extender. There it is. Under extender tab, you have this B app store. And these are all modules that you can upload or install into and will become an extra tab for Burp Suite. Extend the functionality of what Burp Suite can actually do. Amazing stuff. Lots of free stuff in here. Some pay stuff in here as well. So it might be pertinent to pay for something, or you might just find a really good tool, which I've done many times, that are free and work really well for what you're trying to accomplish depending on the engagement. But basically what's going to end up happening is you would have a scanner section for here. I don't have the $400 install version, but that's not a big deal. We just needed to understand that it can do it. And you're going to see a lot of the same types of output that we saw with Zap. It's going to say, hey, here are some vulnerabilities that we've seen. You might want to take a look at that. Here are some options for it. But you can also use this as the proxy. And as you go in here, you're starting to see I'm intercepting traffic already because my client in the background is, when you go to a website and you're like, man, this thing's running slow. It's probably because it's got a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. It's a great way to see what that stuff is. So it's intercepting that. And I can see this is trying to do a post to this client, which is interesting. What's the actual, it doesn't say, at least not yet. That's fun. I don't know what's going on there. So I'd probably want to look into that. That's fine. I'll just turn the intercept off and then it won't show me that traffic. I can see that traffic though by going to HTTP history. I see it's Mozilla. It's the Firefox. Probably trying to reach out to Firefox, looking for information to keep it up to date, that kind of stuff. Of course, I can right click on that if I can. You'll see that information down here, but I can right click on this, send this to something like the repeater. If I go to the repeater, I'm then able to start doing operations like fuzzing. I can change this client to say, admin client, and then resend that request. See what kind of response I get over on this side. Does it break? Do I get a 404? Do I get a, who knows? Well, I'll send it. I don't care. I don't get anything because it's trying to reach out to Firefox. I have this on a private network because that Websploit 2018 is just full of holes and I don't want to expose that to the internet because it's on my machine. That's a helpful safety tip for you guys out there trying to build out virtual labs to do this kind of stuff. But there you go. A lot of the same functionality and features that you find in Zap, actually probably more so and better if you are paying for that pro version. If you're using the community version, I would actually say in some ways Zap is better because you're getting that pro level functionality, but not with the price tag. But I still use Burp for a lot just because of its ease of use, and it's the free functionality is still pretty great.
You know, another open source GPL-based web app scanner, you know, has a comprehensive set of tests that it runs against your web server is something like Nikito. Can you tell me a little bit about that one?
I love it. Nobody can say this thing correctly.
Yeah.
But Wes, I think you said Nikito.
Yeah.
It's Nick2.
Nick2. Oh,
Nick2.
oh, I was thinking it was
yeah.
like a Russian spy or
Yeah.
something
So
like that.
this comes from the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, okay.
Right. The robot comes out of the spaceship and he says, I don't know the exact thing, but part of it was Nick2.
Nick2. Okay.
Right? I can't remember the entire phrase off the top of my head. That's what they named the scanner after, Nick2. I used to call it, I wanted to call it Nitco forever.
Sounds like a gas
My
station.
brain, even when typing it, I couldn't get the stinking thing right. To save my life, I was like, what do you mean command not found? Oh, that's right. The command that command does not exist. Let me type it correctly. You should have it. To work with Nick2, let's jump into a terminal here, and you just fire Nick2 like so. Well, if you don't give it any options, it's gonna tell you, hey, I know you're trying to run me, but you didn't give me a whole lot of information. So if you would please do that, you know, like error, no host or URL has been specified. So let's run this thing. We'll run it against that websploit device. And if you just do Nick2-H, which tells it which host you want to scan, HTTP, TTP, and it is Websploit 2018. And then a lot of times I will output if you just run it like this, it will dump all the output in text format straight to the screen. And that's fine. That's a great way to go. But what a lot of times I'll do is I'll do a -O, and this will be super helpful, which says output to, and I'll just call it like Websploit or like something descriptive. Nikto _Websploit 2018 .htm. I like to put it in .htm. That way I can look at the report in my web browser and see what the results were. So we're going to get to see two different types of results from Nick2 really quickly. So here it is. It's running through. It's already finding certain issues, X content type options. Remember, we saw that as back with OWASP Zap. Allowed HTTP methods. Post is something that's normal. Get, head, options. If I saw something like put, that would be a very interesting piece of output for me. Maybe we'll see things like RFI, LFI vulnerability. You'll see that it has done some directory finding. It found a directory called test. It's replaying that back out to me, letting me know that that's something you might want to investigate. It's got a PHP my admin directory. Oh, I didn't know that. That's nice to know. I'll go and check. Maybe there's some vulnerabilities associated with that version of PHP my admin. Who knows? Maybe get some entry. Maybe some default creds are being used. So that's what it's doing. So it's running through that. And there you go. And now I can, if I do Firefox, and what was that? I called it Nick2. There we go. It should open up in my browser. And hey, look, I got this lovely, I'll make it a little more usable, right? And I can click on links. It's telling me, hey, there's an anti-click jacking X-frame option is not present. You might want to check that out. And there's a link, right? And you're not seeing a whole lot. Something down here where it actually shows you some of the vulnerability stuff it was trying to do. Found this changelog.php. I can click on that. It will take me here. I'm confronted with the login, the auth page. So I'd have to try to get past that, but I see that it exists. Maybe there's a known vulnerability there. Nick2 is still a really good scanner in a lot of ways. So I highly recommend this one as well. I think they've done a good job of curating a list for us.
All right, we got another one in the list
One
that
more.
we need to talk about. I'm going to try to pronounce this one, and I'm thinking arachnophobia here on this one. Arachne.
He's smart, yes.
All right.
Arachne got that one
All
straight.
right, very good.
Hey, you're 3 for 4, right?
That's
not
right.
bad. Arachne, another scanner. You can install it on Kali. I had some issues with it. It used to come pre-installed, but I had some issues getting it installed. Installed it on Windows, ran like a champ. I could run it in Kali, but it wasn't the way I wanted it to go. So over here, yeah, I got a Windows box up and running. Let's get logged in. Just show you the output that it ran here. And there you go. It's a nice web front end. Just log in, take a look, and we see it's giving me some color coding of red and bad, right? Saying these are high, medium, low, and informational vulnerabilities that you might want to look at. So I can start to prioritize, and I can see over here, okay, this is a high cross-site request forgery issue, giving me information about that and why I might want to take a look at that. And then, of course, right here, showing me where the issue might lie. So giving me a link for that. I love web interfaces like this because they just make our lives easy. You get a nice dashboard. Don't get me wrong, I work with a lot of text, and that can be beneficial as well. But being able to work with both, Arachne really did a good job. I actually had to stop the scan. It was just going too crazy. Free download, easy for us to start playing with, get some actual hands-on experience with. And you can see it breaks it down into different types of vulnerabilities that it found instead of just the severity. So if you wanted to get a little more fine-grained, you could. Super easy to set up and get to running once I had it on the right platform. And I was off to the races. So I highly recommend this one as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember, it is an important part of a cyber analyst's job to be able to interpret that output. And remember, in this episode, we got to look at OWASP Zap, we got to look at Burp Sweep, we got to look at Nick2, as well as Arachne here too. So we got a lot more coming up in the upcoming episodes of the CySa Plus series, so we hope we'll see you then.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.